Okay, we're now going on to section 4, our report writing secrets section. And we're going to move a little bit quicker because I see that we are approaching our time limit for this program. So we're going to move quickly through the remaining 2 sections, section 4 and section 5. Section 4 deals with report writing secrets, and section 5 deals with deposition secrets. In section 5, we touched briefly on some deposition strategies, and for more information about depositions, I refer you to our 6-hour program entitled The Deposition Matrix, also available from our website. Now, section 4, in talking about report writing secrets, how can you make your reports excellent? How can you make your reports truly excellent? And if you're like me, you've probably read hundreds and hundreds of doctors' reports. And some are excellent, but most are not. And the reason most are not is because most doctors' reports are a reflection of the doctor's thinking. And when you read a report that is scattered and is not organized and is not clear, that is a reflection of the doctor's thinking. And you want to be clear. You want to be organized. You want to have flow. You want to have format. Your report has to be a flow and a logical sequence that leads the reader along to the inevitable conclusion. And you have to bring your reader along step by step with you in the formulation of your conclusions. So the first secret of creating persuasive reports is to format your report clearly. You want to establish a flow that clearly takes your reader through a logical sequence. And this applies to the report as a whole, from page 1 to page 30, also as well as to individual sections within the report. For example, I can give a recommendation on how to do the history section. With the history section, I recommend that you divide your history section into 2 separate sections. Number 1 is the history according to the medical records. And number 2, the history as it's described by the examinee. And the 2 of those should correlate, correct? Any inconsistencies between what's described in the history according to the medical records and the history according to the examinee would need to be investigated. Similarly, within the physical exam, your physical exam should have an established format. And if you think back to when you were in medical school or chiropractic school or osteopath school or optometry school or whatever school you went to, they were sticklers about physical exam format. I remember in chiropractic school, I went to Palmer West College of Chiropractic, and they were sticklers about flowing through the exam in a regimented format. And we used the Hippie-Ronel format, Hippieronel format. And your physical exam should flow similarly. I can't tell you how many reports I've seen where there's a cervical spine injury and the doctor is talking about no tenderness to palpation of the knee. And it just doesn't make any sense. So your report needs to be formatted clearly as a whole globally, and then each of the individual sections also need to flow. Use bold headings to indicate new thoughts or new sections. Use bullets, use numbers, use bulleting and different formatting methods to separate out items and draw the reader's eye to those items, and work on creating an organized flow and format to the report. And with regards to report formatting, there's basically two sources that we rely on for what information goes into our QME reports. Now, before 2005, before we started using the AMA guides, we relied on the 2001's Physician's Guide to tell us what elements go into a good QME report. And then came along the AMA guides, and the AMA guides gave us a different set of components that go into the report, because the AMA guides are concerned with permanent impairment. They're not necessarily concerned with workers' compensation issues in a particular jurisdiction. We need to then have some sort of a hybrid format that includes both of the components that are required in the 2001's Physician's Guide, and then also includes the elements of permanent impairment included or required by the AMA guides. And those of you that have the PowerPoint program have an outline of the requirements as those are described in the AMA guides, and also as those are described in the 2001's Physician's Guides. And I won't go into that in great detail here. However, on the PowerPoint, you can get more information on that. I want to just touch upon the requirements of the AMA guides. The AMA guides require some things that you may not be doing in your current reports. The AMA guides require a review of systems, that you do a review of systems. And I didn't always do a review of systems, and you may not do a review of systems as part of your evaluation, but I recommend that you do. And that is supported in the AMA guides, that you do a review of systems. That's supported on page 18, and there's a quote in the AMA guides on page 18. It says, the physician needs to ensure that the examinee understands that the evaluation's purpose is medical assessment, not medical treatment. However, if new diagnoses are discovered, the physician has a medical obligation to inform the requesting party and the individual about the condition and recommend further medical assessment, unquote. This is where the review of system comes in very well. The review of systems can uncover other medical conditions that may or may not relate to the current concern. And probably one of the best examples that I have, that I can think of from my own cases, is I had an injured worker that developed some tremors of his right upper and lower extremities after a lumbar spine injury, an industrial lumbar spine injury. So temporally speaking, the tremors coincided with the injury, at least temporally. Now, I couldn't see how physically the two were related, but to the injured worker, who was a layperson, he simply reported that he had this work injury, and then some couple of weeks or months later, he developed these tremors. And so in his mind, it was the industrial injury that caused the tremors. And on the review of systems, he indicated that he had tremors. Now, I didn't particularly note tremors on observation and in casual interview with the injured worker, but when we got to do the examination, and I asked him to go through certain exam maneuvers, the intention tremors became more apparent. But even so, they were subtle, and I might not have noticed it, or it might not have been in my consciousness had I not noted that he indicated the tremors and their date of onset and the review of systems form. Well, to make a long story short, we ran some studies, and I suspected he was developing Parkinson's disease. I didn't think that it was related to the industrial injury, but nonetheless, I notified him that I suspected Parkinson's disease. I put it in my report, and in order to make absolutely sure that it was not related to the industrial injury, I sent him out for a neurologic evaluation, which was covered under the industrial injury. And indeed, he was diagnosed with early Parkinson's disease, and he was then able to go ahead and get treatment for the Parkinson's disease. And lo and behold, the treatment for the Parkinson's disease lessened the spasms and hypertonicity and pain of the lower back, and he was able to be released from care on the industrial injury with no permanent impairment for the lower back, and his Parkinson's disease is under good medical control with medications, and that was an example of a win-win situation for all parties.